Hey y'all, welcome back to the Bonbon V, aka the Good Life. It's your girl Nuri, and I'm back with yet another video. So today I wanted to talk about obedience, and not the way that you hear it all the time. I really wanted to talk about how obedience shows up in our lives and why it's important to pay attention. I know I made a video talking about paying attention, but like this is so crucial because I was able to discover this through paying attention. So I would notice a lot of times that I would get instructions by the Holy Spirit to do certain things. And I would also notice that the exact thing that I'm told to do, there are things that would hinder me from doing those things. And it would be simple things, simple, very simple things. And at first I was like, okay, maybe God didn't ask me to do this. Maybe like it would be like, for example, I remember I was told to go somewhere. And when I was trying to go to this place, out of nowhere, right? And this is probably going to be a little bit of a TMI, but out of nowhere, I had like food poisoning, it seems. I don't even know what happened, but it was food poisoning. And I was like, oh no, like I'm not going to be able to do this thing anymore. I'm not going to be able to go out and do what God called me to do. It's okay. Let me just rest and sleep. And then maybe the following day I'm going to do it. But I was convicted, and the Holy Spirit told me, I told you to do it right now. I told you to do it today. And I was able to do the thing that God called me to do. And I noticed it, but I didn't really think much about it because I didn't really think much about it, right? Until yesterday, right? Yesterday I was called to go to because my church, we have prayers in the morning on Saturdays, and really early in the morning. And God told me, okay, you have to go to church to pray today or the following day. And I was okay. I journaled. I remembered like making it a point to go to church. He also instructed me where to sit and all these things, and to also stay after service to have a to just dwell in the Holy Spirit towards the end of the service. Well, all of these were the instructions. I set my mind to wake up at 8 to go to church at 9 because my church isn't that far from me. And y'all, when I woke up at 8, the Holy Spirit reminded me that church service was at 8. So I woke up at the time that I was supposed to be at church. And so I was like, ah, man, like, what a bummer. Like, I was really kind of upset, and I heard about it, but I was like, well, I guess that means I'm going to stay home and not go to church. But the Holy Spirit reminded me, I told you it was important for you to go to church, so you need to go to church. So I rushed, like, brushed my teeth, did everything. Like, thankfully, I made it to church. I was like maybe about 30 minutes late like almost 40 minutes late to church, but I made it to church. And then I was supposed to sit in the back. I look and I see that all the seats are filled in the back, and I'm like, okay, not all the seats, but most of the seats are filled. So I'm like, this is weird because usually Saturday morning prayers doesn't have that many people, but for some reason today it did. And so I was like, okay, I found somewhere else to sit, but it was kind of close to the back, but not really in the back. So that was like another like point of disobedience right there. And then remember, God told me to stay after church to kind of like dwell with the Spirit. And at the end of service, the pastor says everyone has to leave immediately. They need to use the sanctuary. So I get up to leave. And I was kind of like, I've never really, it's not really common for the pastor to say something like that. But I was like, okay, whatever. I get up to leave, right? And as I'm going out, I'm walking away, I get convicted. And the Holy Spirit tells me, remember what I told you? It's not too late for you to go back and actually, it's not too late for you to go back and dwell with me, right? And so I said, okay. I went back. When I went back into the church, the people were all in the church. They were still having conversations, and it was like they were lingering. And here I was trying to hurry up and rush out of the church because the pastor said to leave, trying to disobey God because it seemed like the right thing to do. Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this because that was just a set of small instructions. And it's interesting because I didn't know why God wanted me to go to church at that time, because I used to go frequently, but I kind of stopped going on Saturdays, and he told me it was very important why I needed to go, and I was going to find out why. And I realized what he wanted me to find out was how the enemy does his schemes, the schemes of the enemy, right? God will give you an instruction. He tells you, do not fear. That is a command, right? And when what do we call sin? Falling short of God's will, God's instructions. If God tells you to not fear, that is a command from God to tell you not to fear. But what are the schemes of the enemy? The enemy will put things in your path to make you disobey. He will make you do things to fear, right? He will put things in your path to make you disobey. That seems like the right thing, right? I was just thinking about it recently. I was like, sin is, it feels good to the flesh. It feels good to sin. The flesh wants to sin, right? I would get instructions sometimes, and this is just me just being open and honest about like what I'm going through sometimes. I would get instructions of what to do for the day. Get up at this time, do this, do this, do this, do this. And you know what I would do? Because my bed is so comfortable, I would lay in bed and sleep, wake up at whatever time I feel like it, get on my phone, right? Scroll on my phone, or thankfully I don't have any more social media. I don't really use social media anymore, but I would literally be just scrolling on shorts and like watching YouTube videos. And then I have like these games that I download on my phone, which I never used to play games. So all of a sudden I'm playing these games. I'm playing games on my phone, and it's kind of like takes up a lot of my time. And then I look at the time, and it's like, oh, it's time for you to do what God called you to do, but you should have been done it. Then the time goes, and by the time I'm done with the day, most of my time that I should have been using to do what God called me to do, it was spent on frivolous things that didn't matter, things that were time consuming and stole my time and stole my attention, right? And this is something that is an ongoing thing. It's not something that, and something that God is working through me. He's delivering me from, but it is something that I can admit that I'm experiencing. And that is a form of falling short. And God will give you instructions. He will give you directions. He will tell you what to do, but it feels good to do the opposite. It's so weird. It feels good in the moment, but then when you like after you're done doing what you're not supposed to do, right? Then you're just like, dang, why did I do this? Like, I spent all day doing this thing, and I could have done X, Y, and Z. I have a list of things that I needed to do for today, and I accomplished. Sometimes I accomplished like 80%, and I'm good. I'm glad that I accomplished those things throughout the day. But it could have been 100% if I really was intentional with how I used my time, with how I spent my time, right? And of course, one of the things I've been praying to God for is discipline and how to be a more disciplined person. But I wanted to share that with you because there are things in your life right now that you know that God called you to do and told you to do it. And there's some things that may come as minor inconveniences, right? That you start to lie to yourself and tell yourself, like, maybe God didn't want me to do this thing after all. Maybe God did not want me to go this route after all. Do you think that the enemy will make it easy for you to obey God? Do you think the enemy will make it pleasing for you and pleasant for you to obey God? The enemy will make it difficult for you to obey God. The enemy will make it seem like a different route is the better option for you to obey God. Then for you to obey God, the enemy will put things in your path to tempt you, right? You think Adam and Eve was tempted by the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and you think, oh, like they shouldn't have done that. Yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, Eve is she's the one that caused all this sin to happen in this world, X, Y, and Z. Listen, most of you watching me right now would have done worse, would have eaten the fruit for less. Okay, you probably have done way worse. than Eve. Listen, Eve was living on earth for the first time. Like, yeah, we're living for the first time too, but she was a official first woman. And Adam, they were the first official people. They had no one to keep them accountable except for God, right? And it was the moment that they were away from God that they got tempted. Notice that God was not in the midst of that. Like, God saw everything, he knows everything, right? But he wasn't in the midst of that, right? And one of the things that I've been learning the past few weeks really has been to include God in every single thing. Everything. Why do I know this? Because I would do something, I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Like, why did this happen? And I'll call my brother and I'll tell him. He'd be like, well, did you ask God for that? Did you ask God to do that? Did you ask for his instructions? Did you ask him if you should do that? And in my mind, I'm like, it's such a small thing. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, why do I need to ask God? And to be very honest with you, like, I didn't. And I was like, you know what? That is not wrong. Like, if I just ask God, like, God should, and mind you, it takes a lot of like practice for you to remember to ask God every single time that you want to do something that you may not think is a big deal, right? But it is. Asking God about what time you should do things, or praying to God before you make any decisions. Praying to God and asking him, God, should I do this? Asking for his direction, asking for his blessing in certain decisions you're about to make, right? And if you get convicted about it, pause and ask him, what you should do, right? But there were so many things, and I realized, I have to include God in every single aspect of my life, right? And so when you are trying to do something for God, or if you are doing something that you feel in your heart that God called you to do this thing and he told you to do this thing, my examples were small. There are even bigger examples that I can even think of, but my particular example was small. Imagine the big things that the enemy is trying to prevent you from obtaining, from doing, right? Like the things that could lead to great blessings, right? If you felt heavy in your heart to go to Home Depot, imagine this happened before to me. You felt heavy in your heart to go buy some boxes. It may not make sense to you, but just do it, right? Just do it. It may be inconvenient. Home Depot may be 5 million miles away. But if God said, this is where I want you to go, you got to do it. Don't feel like the inconvenience is not what God wants. Like, listen, a lot of things that God is going to call you to do are not going to be convenient to you. Ask the prophets in the Bible. It is not convenient for them. But the enemy will try to put things in your path. That's why I said pay attention. Because for a long time, I wasn't paying attention. Like I would get instructions to do certain things, and then it would be easy for me not to do the thing that God called me to do. Without thinking about it, I would just go the easy route, the seemingly easy route. And then when I don't like the outcome, then I'd be like, wow, well, God did tell me not to do this. I did hear a voice in the back of my head telling me this is not a good decision, and I still did it anyway. I didn't pray about this before I did this thing. It just seemed like the right thing to do at the moment. That is how the enemy gets you. That's how the enemy gets you out of God's blessings for you. Right? This goes back to my video about paying attention, y'all. Like, pay attention. I'm telling you. Because if you don't pay attention, the enemy will get over on you. The enemy will do so many things to go over on you. I'm telling you. Obedience is one of those things that it's not like, oh, I don't want to do this. I'm being hard-headed. Like I'm being a hard-headed child. I don't want to listen to my father. Nah, sometimes it's that. But a lot of times it's like inconvenient. It is not fun. It is painful. It completely sometimes goes against what you want to do, right? You want to sleep in bed, but God told you to go to church. I mean, at the time when God told me, hey, you know, it doesn't matter if it's 8 o'clock, you need to go. I told you to go. I was like, yeah, but like, I can go next week. What's wrong with me going next week? At least next week I'll be prepared and I know that it's at 8 and not at 9. Right? I'm telling you, I went and I know the Lord allows it to happen. He allows it to happen because the night before I said to myself, well, I'm going to go to church at 9. And even though I was late, the service extended longer than it usually does because it's usually an hour. It ends at 9, but it ended up they ended up finishing at like 9:15, 9:20. So it was like that time made up for itself. It was made up, right? I missed the first 30 plus minutes, but I was able to stay there for almost 45 minutes. So the point I'm saying is you just got to be obedient no matter what the circumstances are. No matter if your circumstances tell you that things are not working out, it doesn't make sense, it is painful, it is harsh, it may look like this thing that you are fighting for to accomplish, that God called you to accomplish, it may seem like it is not going to happen because your circumstances are telling you like, nah, you know, just do the comfortable thing. Just do what makes sense. The world will tell you this doesn't make sense. Why are you going this route? Why are you doing this thing? The world doesn't need to understand. The world does not need to understand. It is your responsibility to obey God, because the only person that can take you out of God's blessings for you, out of God's promises, are you and your disobedience. Just obey. I'm telling you. And obedience, like I said, it's not going to be easy. A lot of times, obedience builds faith. It builds faith. And we all know how faith works. Like, you are waiting on God for something, but you just have to continue being obedient to him. But yeah, y'all, that's all I wanted to say. I hope that this resonated with you. I pray that God, you know, gives you the strength to obey. He gives you the wisdom and the discernment to recognize the temptations and the lies of the enemy so that you can overcome it. For God to shed light in the darkness. But yeah, y'all, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.